Everyone, good afternoon. Thank you for being here. I know it's a Saturday and there's so many competing priorities for our Saturday. But I want to appreciate those of you who have taken time. Hi, Abdulafiz. Thank you for showing up today. I just want to appreciate everyone who's taking time to be a part of this. I believe that there is a lot of value to get from it. Adara has put this together because it recognizes that the world is a global market. It's a global space. And, just having a 9 to 5 now just doesn't cut it anymore. They say people with ideas rule the world, right? And this program has been put together, the digital skills training, to equip you, support those of you who are already doing business, and also inspire those of you who perhaps are still considering putting your feet in the waters of entrepreneurship, right? Some of the digital skills training you've already received will help you in that regard. And of course, this final session sort of brings it all together, just to open your eyes to see the possibilities that exist with being a business owner. I recall last week just encouraging us to look for the movie, The Men Who Built America, right? And in your spare time, just try and watch it because you would understand that economies are largely driven by people who have capacity to provide value, right? People who can control and contribute to the value creation process, that this is how economies are built. Yeah. And so you'd see most of the people that are tagged as really wealthy people are people who are very hands-on in terms of value creation, solving problems that exist within humanity, or exist for humanity. Okay, so today we'll be building on everything it is that we discussed last week, and I want to take a moment, just in the next 2 minutes, if you can just share your big takeaway from last week's class, just so that I'm encouraged and I know that you're following and paying attention. What was your critical takeaway, your big lesson from last week's class? And if there's anyone who, took out time to practice any of the things that we discussed. We spoke about who an entrepreneur is. We spoke extensively about the entrepreneurial mindset. So if you took any action or any step in any of the things that we discussed, either as an existing business owner or as someone who's looking at starting business, what did you do differently in the last week? It'd be great to read your comments and just see if anyone is willing to share with us. That'll be lovely. Yeah, anybody? Okay, we don't have so much time, but it would be great if I could get someone to just share a thought. You can unmute and speak. Now, only me waka come today, people. Yeah, should I call names? I can see Iyanu here. Ayotola Iyanu. Hi, Iyanu, are you willing to share? What did you learn? First of all, were you a part of last week's session? If yes, what was your big takeaway? Yes? Oh, you weren't. Okay. All right, that's noted. Abdulafiz, please bail us out. I know you were a part of last week's class. So just help us. Yes, are you there?
Yes,
Can you speak?
Good afternoon, ma. Can you hear me?
Hi, good afternoon. Yes, please.
Yeah, it was an amazing moment. And then, okay, as an aspiring entrepreneur, I think the session last week actually opened my mind and also expand my mindset towards my career. And so far, okay, I actually took a step during the week. I always thought of like bringing something like creating a brand. So I had to sit down and be like, okay, what am I solving, and how am I going to get the right people, and how am I going to make it expand than the way it is.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you so much. Okay, so essentially you approached your week with a problem-solving mindset, which is really good. All right, moving on to today's focus, business ideation, modeling, and market research. We'll focus really on the business ideation bit today. I know I promised a take-home last week, which I didn't get around to. My apologies. That would come this week with this week's assignment. But we will talk extensively at our next class about the bit around market research and also business models. But let's see the process for ideation because of time, just so that we can juice this properly. So I'm going to start with the macro and then the micro economy that businesses typically operate in. So please follow me, even if you are not a student of economics, right, or finance or any of these things. It's okay. I'm just going to speak to it in a very easy way that would enable you to understand it. Every business operates in an environment, right? So there's the macroeconomic environment that impacts on that business, and then there is the microeconomic environment. The macroeconomic environment speaks to the global economy, right? So when decisions are made, for example, if someone is operating as a small or a medium-scale business within the oil and gas industry, maybe you're an oil distributor, you distribute finished products like maybe diesel, DPK or AGO, right? And there are decisions made in the global economy around the price of, say, the price of crude oil, the sale of crude oil, right? And understanding that your microeconomy, where you operate as a business, that is the Nigerian economy, feeds off of the global economy, right? Now, we trade crude oil, we sell crude oil, and then we buy. Unfortunately, we sell it, and then we now buy the finished products. So if the market determines, the global market determines the cost of these things, by the time you're buying, right, it impacts on how you are able to sell. I don't know if that makes sense. So there is the global economy, the macro, and then there is the micro level, right? Within the micro level, microeconomics, you see things like lending rates, determined by the Monetary Policy Committee, right? You see there are little things here and there that impact on the ability of a business to function effectively. Within the microeconomy, right, the provision of infrastructure, in the government policies, these are the things that impact on that, the ability of businesses to function and to thrive effectively. Also, they're scaling it down. So you have the global economy, you have the local economy, right, which is largely driven by government policies, government regulations, right? And then you have the physical operating environment of the business. Then you have its customers, and then you have its competitors. So these are all of the things that a business has to bear in mind when making certain decisions around their operations. Then when you move from that, you then examine the business itself. A business is made up of the operating environment, like I have described earlier, its internal capacity, and the financial targets that it sets for itself. Every business, except organizations that are set up as not-for-profit, remember I spoke about those types of business setups last week, either not-for-profits or non-profits or social business ventures. Those are the only ones that are not profit-driven. But every business exists to make profits and to continue to exist for the foreseeable future as a going concern. Okay, so which is why both internal capacity and the financial targets are critical. Under the internal capacity, businesses need to think about the information that would help them operate effectively and efficiently. What processes need to be in place? What people, who do they need to serve in certain functions? As a small scale business, when you're starting out, there is the bootstrapping method or methodology that you embrace, which is fine, it's not out of place. However, to be able to scale, you are not expected to remain at that bootstrapping phase where the owner of the business is the one managing the finances or managing the accounts, is the one doing the marketing. When you're starting out, that's okay, right? But if you're looking to scaling that business, if you're looking to repositioning it in such a way and manner that it is attractive to investors, then there is something called structure that you need to start to put in place, right? You need to start to put in place systems and structure. And businesses are expected to also start to leverage technology because we live in a technology-driven world. Technology has revolutionized how businesses operate. Let me give an example of banking. Back in the days, when you want to withdraw money, you have to physically go and queue up, right? You have to go and queue up at the bank. In fact, at the bank, the banking hall. In those days, the teller, the person disbursing the money, sits like in the middle of the banking hall on a high pedestal, and it's like everybody is going there as a god. You go with something called passbook. Let me try and log in with my phone so that I can see the comments section very easily, so that as I ask questions, I can get contributions, because I'm unable to see the chat room very easily at the moment. Anyway, let's go on. So back then, you would have everybody go with their passbook, and they would go. Now you're using ATM cards, you're using credit cards to make withdrawals. You don't even have to get into the banking hall most times. But then to get any kobo out of your account, first of all, to put money in your account, you get to the bank. To get money out of it, you get to the bank. And then you queue there. Sometimes the banking business is an entire day when you decide to go to the bank, right? And then you're there endlessly. Why? Because everybody comes with their passbook, and then people have to manually, balance accounts and write your balance for you and all that. You take that and put it. Some of you can't relate because maybe you're a Gen Z or something, and you were born way after that, or even as a millennial, maybe you're, Anyway, take that and put it side by side with what we have now in terms of the efficiency of current operations and business, banking, the banking industry, the disruption that has happened, the innovation that has happened, such that you don't even need to move. You can be on your bed, you can send money from here to any part of the world, and things like that. So that's just an example of how technology has disrupted an industry. Any bank that is still operating with that old model obviously cannot be competitive anymore. In fact, will not thrive. Such a bank cannot exist, which is why some of the banks that went under, if you look at the Nigerian banking sector over the last 20 or so years, a number of the banks that went under, some of them it was aside from fraudulent activities, aside from, financial misappropriations, it was also just the quality of their service, right, and their product offerings. It was not competitive anymore. They were losing out on business, essentially. And then you had banks that were very agile and nimble, the likes of your GT Bank, the likes of your Access. And this is not to sell any bank here now, because right now there's another technological or technology disruption that is happening within the banking sector now, called financial technology, the fintechs. They're disrupting the market. Some of the things that the commercial banks are struggling to be able to deliver because they are now very large and they are no longer as agile or nimble. In this, remember I used a word last week, VUCA environment, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous environments that businesses are operating in. You cannot afford to be so large that you are unable to be agile, that you're unable to be nimble, that you're unable to adapt to changing conditions and trends that are coming up. So we can see what the likes of MoneyPoint and OPay are beginning to do in terms of disruption. They're getting a significant chunk now of the grassroots market share. Yeah, people are beginning to use them because what we had previously was GT Bank, which literally took the retail banking of. So I'm using banking just to help you understand disruption that has happened and why technology it needs to be a consideration for any business owner when you are building your internal capacity. All right, and of course, financial targets. These are important because they say he who fails to plan plans to fail. So part of your strategic planning has to be, how much will this business make? How much does it need to be able to generate this amount of revenue? What types of costs should we start to incur from now? What is our profit margin? What kinds of profits do we want to make? So a good business strategy seeks to answer a key strategic question, given the way the external environment is. What do I need to know? Who do I need for my operations? And what must be in place in order to meet my financial targets? That is a question that every business owner needs to bear in mind. Now let's move to something called value. We used that word a great deal last week, right? Just helping us explain how the mind of an entrepreneur works. So the cost of a thing is what it takes to produce it. The price of a thing is what you pay for it. And the value of a thing is what you get out of it. Does that make sense, everyone? I hope you can hear me. The cost of a thing is what you use in producing it. When we get to the financial side of this conversation, you would see that recognized as expense, right? The price, the selling price, that is what people will pay for it. Yeah. The value is what you get out of it on both sides now, right? Especially on the part of the person who is purchasing, who is paying for it. So value is described as the worth of all the benefits and rights arising from ownership. Okay, so you own a product, you own a business idea, you own a service offering, and you put it out there. What people pay for it is the value that you derive. Okay, so value proposition is a promise of value to be delivered and acknowledged, and a belief from the customer that value will be delivered and experienced. So I need you to pay attention to this, right? Because when we get into building our business model canvas, you would come across this term again, value proposition. So it is a promise of value to be delivered and acknowledged. And on the side of the customer who is receiving the value, it is a belief that I will get value, from this product that I'm purchasing or this service that I'm paying for. Value proposition is as relative as the word value itself. This means that what you consider, what Hafiz considers valuable, what Michael considers valuable, may not be what I consider valuable. So value is dependent on the perception of the person receiving the value or engaging that value. Value proposition can be offered in form of a product or a service. And while it may be easy to quantify the value of a product, the value of a service may not be as easy. And we find this especially true for people who operate in this, a lot in the service industry, people like consultants, billable hours, to the service that they render, people who maybe play the keyboard and all. Someone will look at it. So take, for example, there's someone called Yanni. For anyone who's a music lover here, you may know who Yanni is. A great pianist, right? World-renowned pianist. Yanni perhaps will come and play your 30 minutes or even a 10 minutes gig, right? Maybe at World Economic Forum, for example, and can be paid thousands of dollars. While someone else would look at it and say, it's not just keyboard that is coming to play. What's the big deal there? Exactly. Still on music and entertainment, you look at how maybe Davido or, any of these guys would write music and produce it, and it will gain so much traction, and somebody wonder, what's wrong, his voice and this other person's voice. When you pay them to come and sing at a gig, somebody's charging 5 million naira. I hear that this guy is now, the minimum amount they charge is like 5 million naira to show up at any gig. That's their starting price. And then somebody else here, they are still offering him 500K or 250K. Why? Because one is a Davido, he has a brand, he's a known name, and the other one is up and coming. Do you understand? So value is dependent on perception, right? And of course, for service, it's a bit tough to quantify, unlike your products. With a product now, if I want to produce this bottle, for as many who can see my screen, I want to produce this bottle, I will factor in my raw material cost, I'll factor in my labor, I'll factor in whatever other expenses I utilized in producing it, my ideation time, if I'm paying other people who are rendering a service to, in the production of this bottle, I'll factor in all my costs, even the cost of going to the market to purchase the raw materials and things like that. So that way, I'm able to determine what value, what price to put to it, because I have computed my costs, and then I apply a margin and I say, okay, I want to make 20% more than I have spent in producing this. And so I arrive at my value. And then people come to you and like, oh, okay, it makes sense. It makes sense. Why? Because maybe they have an idea of how much raw materials cost and whatever, unlike service. So question is, what is the customer willing to pay for the product or for the service? That is a big question that every entrepreneur tackles. So do I decide what I want to sell to my environment, or do I allow the environment decide what it wants? This is how we define our value proposition. Okay. Is it a function of what I want to sell, or do I allow the environment decide what it wants? And that's $1 million question that you hold, because as we go through the today's class, you would be able to answer this question eventually. But one of the major problems that I need to spotlight here that prospective entrepreneurs have is that they are locked into certain stereotypes that hinder them from seeing opportunities within their environment. Now, if you're functioning with the lens of, I determine what I want to sell to my environment, right? It means that you may potentially be missing out on the opportunities to solve problems or to add value that exists within your operating environment. Serious-minded entrepreneurs find their sweet spot. That sweet spot is the point of contact with the market, and they milk it. They identify that point of contact, and then they develop specific value propositions to take advantage of the identified opportunity. Okay, so let's keep running through. Still on that value proposition, now we're moving from value proposition to value creation. And I'm going to speak through the distinction that exists between both. Value creation, when you look at the value creation, you think about the value chain. I spoke about this last week, that businesses are able to leverage opportunities when they understand the value chain of an industry. So I think I used the example of the FMCG industry and the cocoa drink like Milo or Cadbury Bonvita. The fact that to arrive at that can or tin of Milo or the sachet of Milo, first of all, there has to be the production of the raw materials that are used. So that is an opportunity that exists for people who are looking to take advantage of that value chain. There is from the farm produce, the agricultural side of things, to the other elements, if sugar is involved, to the production of the nylon or the tins, right? The wrap, the branding, to the different things that exist there. And of course, then even after the product has then been created, to the distribution of it, whether as a wholesaler, as a distributor, or as a retailer. So there's an end-to-end value chain, yeah? It's a set of value-creating activities within an entity, within an industry. While a value system is a set of value-creating activities connecting one entity with other entities and customers, like the one I just described now. So considerations for value creation, one is trapped value. Now, when you think about trapped value, for someone who is looking to going into business, you have a business idea. You're thinking, you need to be able to answer which of these value creation opportunities or models does this idea sit in? Is it a trapped value? Is this an opportunity for efficiency within an existing value system or a value chain? Am I trying to solve a problem of accessibility? Am I trying to solve a problem of customer empowerment? Now, is this a new value that it doesn't even exist at all, but it is a gap that exists within a process? And so this is me trying to plug this gap with a new value. So am I thinking personalization? Is this an extension opportunity? Is it community building? Is it collaboration? Horizontal plays and vertical plays. Am I looking to improving functional operations within a value chain? Vertical plays, am I looking to improving industry-specific business activities? Every idea we come up with sort of fits into this 4 molds, broadly speaking. Okay, now let's do a quick case study. And I would like somebody in the room, because I have been speaking for a bit. Let me just see the wonderful people that we have in the room now. Just give me a moment. I need to find because I'm presenting, I'm struggling to find the bars, the panel. Ugh. Oh dear. Okay, found it. Awesome, we have 10 people. Welcome, guys. Welcome, everyone. Okay, I would love anyone who is able to unmute and speak to do that. Go ahead and raise your hand. Use the hand raise button so I can call you. Otherwise, I'm going to call someone. I just need someone to read me the first paragraph. That way I know that you are still with me. Do we have any takers, please? Beautiful. Joy Samson, please go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, ma.
Hi, good evening.
Henry Parsons Crowell founded. Okay, sorry. Henry Parsons Crowell founded Quaker Oats. He left an indelible mark on society by bringing oatmeal to America's breakfast table, provided new methods of marketing and merchandising. Without a
Thank
high
you so
school
much.
diploma.
Go on, go on.
Okay. Without a high school diploma or even the opportunity to have learned vital business lessons from his father, Henry had to rely on his own instincts to succeed. The 2 previous owners had lost
Thank
their
you so
trust
much.
with their
Okay.
oatmeal, but his uncle urged Henry to research the matter even still. At the time, oats were considered horse food, but Henry saw where rolled oats from the Quaker mill could become a part of America's breakfast table.
Thank you
That's
very
the end.
much. Yes, thank you, Joy. Thank you. So there's a second page, and I saw Ifoma Laura raise her hand initially. So Ifoma, go ahead, please.
Okay, ma. Good evening, everyone. In 1881, Henry bought Quaker Mill and immediately hired an operations person to handle the mill, while Henry focused his time and energy on creating a market for his rolled oats. Despite much hard work, Quaker Mills was struggling. Up to that point, oats were presented for sale in big barrels or boxes, set on the floors of groceries or general stores, attracting worms, insects, and vermin. He envisioned his oats on grocery store shelves in individual, sanitary, cardboard containers. The idea worked. Demand soared.
Thank you very much, Ifoma. So this is just a very, very short summary of the history of what we call Quaker oats, right? I'm sure all of us are familiar with Quaker oats, and you probably did not even know that this was a story, that it used to be horse food, by the way. It used to be food that was fed to horses, not human beings. But somebody saw an opportunity that it could go from being that raw food that horses feed on, it could become rolled oats with additional processing that could become consumable for human beings. He saw an idea, he took that idea, he ran with it, but it did not deliver in the way he initially designed it, which was why you could see in that second paragraph on this next page that the mill was struggling, because what they were doing in terms of how they were selling it, the packaging of it was in big boxes and in big barrels. The way they used to package the horse meals then, the horse food. And so until he began to do, the small packaging cube boxes that looked like cereal boxes and cereal tins, that was what attracted customers. So that's a big lesson there, that sometimes some of the things that you discard and you think there is no value to it, someone else can see it and see how just with a little process improvement, or putting some work into this, reworking it in its current form, it can deliver value. So thank you everyone who's read. So value creation process is how entrepreneurs turn ideas into meaningful solutions that people are willing to pay for. It involves identifying a need, creating a product or service to solve it, and delivering it effectively. Now, great entrepreneurs don't just sell products. And that is the reason why so many businesses do not go beyond like 5 years. In fact, they say if a business thrives beyond 5 years, it's like a marriage. That means that that business perhaps will continue to exist, especially in Nigeria. Remember what I said last week about the ease of doing business index, and how that's Nigeria, our position on that index out of 190 countries, we're currently number 131, which means that it is still not very easy to do business in Nigeria, but it is better than where we're coming from. So great entrepreneurs don't just sell products, they solve problems, they improve lives, and they create impact through innovation. Every step in the process from idea to delivery adds value for the customer and the community. So I'm going to talk through 6 value creation process. I'll talk through the process flow and speak to 6 things in that process flow. And I need you to pay attention to this. It's very important. The first is that in this value creation process, you must identify an opportunity. And we have said that severally since the first class. That is spotting a gap in the market or a problem, identifying a problem that people face. How do you do this? You use customer pain points, trends. What are people talking about on Twitter or on X? It's called X now. What are they talking about on Meta? What are the things people are complaining about on, what's that, Niger gossip, not Niger something. What's that forum that you can get anything? People are looking for anything, they go there. They want to sell something, they put it there. Niger something, I don't remember the name now. If anybody knows the name, please type it in the chat room. Yeah, Joy, go ahead. What's the name of the thing? Okay, so there's Instablog Niger. That's not even the one I'm talking about. There's one that was very popular back in the days. Joy, go ahead. I saw your hand come up. Oh, okay. SS is saying Linda Ikechi. No, there's a Niger something. Someone needs to help. Naira Land. Thank you. Thank you so much. Can you imagine? It's Naira Land, not even Niger. Yes, thank you. Naira Land. Thank you so much. So yes, what are they complaining about there? Sometimes your ideas can come from the most random place. Most random place. Yeah. What trends are you seeing? What is the market saying? What innovations are coming up? Because all of these can serve as inspiration, okay? So an example, a case study that I have on the screen here is the story of Airbnb. If you know how Airbnb started, fantastic. If you don't, I'm going to share with you very quickly. But Airbnb noticed travelers wanted affordable local and personal accommodations. And that was what the business model was built to solve, okay? So up on my screen here, I have a short infographic that shows you how Airbnb started, okay? So 2 guys, Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia, in their room, there was a conference then in San Francisco. That was where they were based. There was a San Francisco conference, and most hotels were booked out. everywhere was packed out, and they saw an opportunity to rent out mattresses in their own space and get paid for it. So it was out of a need that they stumbled into this business, literally. And by the time they did that, they saw, oh, okay, there is something here. Then they went to their friend, Nathan, who became a co-founder in the business. And they shared the idea with Nathan and asked that he builds them a website. You can take a picture of this screen so that you can read up just the flow of how they started. But that was it. That was how Airbnb was formed. It was designed, to provide accommodation. And also, so it was a two-pronged approach. One is solving the needs of travelers when they get to specific locations, right? Of course, there became a steep competition for hotels, especially for people who are looking to paying less, so cheaper price was a strategy that they used in, establishing their model, pricing, and of course, comfort, and just the personal home touch, right? And another benefit is putting money in the hands of homeowners. So you have a space in your 3-bedroom apartment that you're not using. You can put out one on Airbnb, right? And people can engage. So that's one. The second point in the value creation process is to develop the idea. We said the first thing is to identify the opportunity. Second, after you have found an opportunity, is to curate an idea, turn the problem into a workable solution or business idea. How do you do this? You brainstorm solutions and you keep refining them with feedback. A case study for this approach is Canva. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Canva, but Canva is a graphic design platform, right? Prior to the existence of Canva, only people who actually maybe studied or trained to be able to do graphic designs could do it. And they had to use, really complex tools and platforms for that, right? Some of the names famous, some Adobe Photoshop thing and something else. However, with the advent of Canva, I can make a design on Canva. It just may not be as professional as those other guys. But if I want to put up an Instagram post, I want to put up a WhatsApp status, I don't need to go and pay a graphic designer anymore. I can simply go to Canva. It will give me suggestions of, what do you call these things now? Like models that I can use, yeah? Samples that I can use, that I can recreate, put in my own text and the like. So Canva essentially templates. God bless you. Thank you. The grammar is trying to fail me this evening. Canva simply simplified graphic design for non-designers by making a drag and drop platform, right? So you can get templates on Canva. And that was how they saw a gap in the whole graphic design space and decided to step into to fill that gap. The third is to validate the idea. Now, number one, again, is identify the opportunity. Number two is what did we say number two was? Develop the idea. And then the third one now is to validate the idea. Test your idea with real users to make sure that people want it. This should be done before you launch your product or you launch your service. A good way to do this, say you're going into a food business, test it out with family and friends, right? And test it with people that test it out with neighbors, people will give you honest and objective feedback, right? Host a private dinner, a cooking event where you cook for a select group of people. Let them try out the menus before you go live with it. Oftentimes, people don't do this product testing, right? And then they go to markets with a product that they believe or a service that they believe they have it 100% figured out, but it's all in your head, it's all in your mind. You're the only one who believes that this will be well received by the market. Yeah, if you're in the clothing industry, I said this last week, I said if you're not wearing your designs, if you're not wearing your patterns, you're not wearing your styles, then how do you want to market it? You should find a few people, and that's what some of these clothing outfits do. They find some influencers that they would make free outfits for and get them to wear and, you know, comment on it. And so find people who can give you feedback. We say that business owners come with skin in the game, right? It's not enough to say, oh, I have this idea and I'm looking for money to fund it. It is, have I tested it to be sure that it's even a viable idea? Okay. So how do I do this validation? Is by using surveys, interviews, creating prototypes or samples, as it were, because prototype can sound like a tech language, or MVPs. MVPs is also a tech language, but the idea is just create a sample that people can see, can test, can interact with before you finalize your decision. Get feedback and use that feedback to improve on the product. Remember again that you are building or designing, right? Whatever your idea you're building, it's for an end user, it's for a consumer, it's for a customer, it's not for you. So don't build for just yourself. Now, so Dropbox is an example. It started with a simple explainer video. So before Dropbox went live, what they did was they created an explainer video to gauge interest before they built the full product. Okay. The fourth point is create the product or service. Create the product. So after you have solved the problem with an idea, you've come up with an idea, you have validated that idea, the next step now is to go ahead into creation mode. So you build this product or you create the service that solves the problem effectively. You build that actual product or platform or service based on validated feedback, and you focus on usability, focus on relevance, and focus on solving the customer's problem. I remember watching a movie where a trust fund baby, rich kid, just felt like solving a problem. Well, it was his own kind of problem. That was the part. But let's even say that people in his social status can relate to that problem. But how he chose to solve it was in a way and manner that worked for him. So he was the tester, he was the validator, he was the user, and at the end of the day, he was the only one that could purchase it because it was not useful to anyone else. Yeah. So you want to avoid building or solving problems by creating products or rendering a service where at the end of the day, it doesn't make sense to most people. An example of such a company that has done this is WhatsApp. WhatsApp created a simple ad-free messaging app for global users. Okay. The fifth point, remember I said there are 6 points. The fifth point is to get the solution to your customer through the right channels. Make your solution available through effective channels, whether it's online, whether it is in-store, whether it is retail, whether it is through subscriptions, right? Ensure smooth operations, customer service, and of course, reliability. Then the last point is communication and value capture. Explain your value clearly. This is how you earn revenue or earn recognition. Sometimes, if you think about those who are social entrepreneurs or who are building businesses that have social impact value, then their focus is not just revenue generation. An example, who remember the example of the social entrepreneur we did last week? For those who were in class last week, the social entrepreneur, the case study we did last week, who remembers his name? If you don't remember his name, do you remember anything about him at all? His nationality? Put it in the comments room, the chat room. His nationality, perhaps, or you remember from India. Fantastic, Ifoma, you're correct. He's from India. Anybody remembers his name now? Muhammad Yunus. Yes, SS, you're correct. Yunus, absolutely. Muhammad Yunus, the founder of Grameen Banking. Yeah. So for someone like Muhammad Yunus, profit obviously or revenue is not his drive, right? But it doesn't mean that he can participate in this entire value creation process. What he's looking at is problem solving, and that can bring recognition instead of just revenue. So communicate your value very clearly. People need to understand why your solution matters and how your solution will deliver, why it is beneficial to them. Remember, you're not selling to yourself. So you're selling to people. It is why they need your solution. Capture value through pricing, through customer loyalty, and long-term impact. Okay. So I said earlier that I was going to explain the difference between value creation and value proposition, because these are terms that you would encounter as you go along in your entrepreneurship journey. Value creation is the process of adding value to a product or service, while value proposition is the promise that a company makes to customers about the value that they will receive. Essentially, or simply put, value creation is the action of building something of value, while value proposition is the promise of that value. So value creation is the building of it, while value proposition is the promise of the value to be received. Okay, I hope that makes sense and helps. Value is a continuous cycle, and as markets and needs evolve, entrepreneurs must revisit and improve their value offering. The most successful businesses listen, adapt, and keep innovating. And this is something that somebody needs to remember continuously in their entrepreneurship journey. Ability to listen, to get feedback from your customers. What are customers saying? And part of how you do this, we will get into the session on managing customers, right? Through marketing and customer retention activities and all. But just to mention this here, they say customer is king. We said that last week. I know somebody tried to fault it. In fact, different schools of thoughts have come up now about that. But at the end of the day, the reality is, if it is customers that are paying your bills, then customer is king. Wherever the cash is flowing from, then that person is king. Okay? So businesses must listen to what the customers want, what they need, not assume it, not assume it. You must adapt, and you must keep innovating, because competition is steep. Now, I remember so I grew up knowing plantain chips. Let me give that example. I grew up knowing plantain chips. All of us know plantain chips, right? In fact, Yorubas in some parts of the Southwest call it ikpekere, dry, people used to make it. In some parts of the Southwest, they call it what's this thing now? That black thing. The Yoruba name fails me, but it's black like this, right? But it's a plantain-based dodoikiri. Yes, God bless you, dodoikiri. So it's different things that and in different places, yeah. But at some point in the early 2000s, if I recall correctly, we started seeing a different type of branding. How many people remember this company called Red Oak? I think there might have been others, but it was their branding and packaging of plantain chips that stood out to me. And they started to make it in different flavors. And it's interesting, I don't see Red Oak on the island now. But back then, it started as a snack on the island, and you'll see it in traffic and all. People used to love to buy Red Oak plantain chips. Then it was going for 100 naira. But Red Oak was now not available on the mainland, especially in the densely populated, low-income parts of the mainland. Why? Because there were variants of plantain chips that already existed, which were being sold at 50 naira, some that they would just tie in nylon, very cheap and cheerful. But if you wanted nicely packaged, nicely flavored, so there was the one that had pepper, there was the original, there was some, I think one had maybe ginger or whatever. You wanted that extra, then you would buy Red Oak. And I'm saying that to say how it started as just a basic plain meal. Now, people on certain parts of the island will not be comfortable buying the ones that are tied in just nylon bag by one Iyarisi, but it might be an Iyarisi that is packaging it, by the way, packaging the Red Oak, but hey, that's what packaging does. Now it has a face, it's beautiful, and it looks very appealing. It looks like it's been made under very hygienic conditions. We can make certain inferences. That's what packaging does. And we'll talk about that, in the course of these 6 weeks. Another example I should give quickly is ube. The English name, I believe, is local pear, right? But those small pears, purple in color, that are mostly eaten with corn, they're usually roasted or boiled. Now, Recently, I discovered that there's a company that is beginning to package dried ube. And a pack goes for 3,000 naira, guys. Ube, you notice the same ube now. Somebody is packaging it and selling it for 3,000. Now it's in stores, in supermarkets. It has been packaged as a healthy snack, right? And so you see a lot of health conscious people now buying ube. People who naturally will not buy the ube that Mama Amaka is selling with her corn by the roadside. This ube, by the way, is significantly more expensive because it has undergone processing and it is in dried form. And it means that people can toss it in their office bags, you know, and snack on it. People can pack it and travel with it. In fact, it has export value. Hence why it is that expensive. So I'm saying to you that with business, you need to continue to innovate. What is the best way that I can deliver this value and solve this problem? Yeah? All right. I hope that helps somebody. I want us to take a quick exercise now. Let's do our poll. And it will come up very soon. So please do engage. It's just a quick check on the things that we have gone through. Just this one question. Which of these are not part of the value creation process that we have just discussed? Remember, we talked about 6. So please pick out the ones that are not a part of this value creation process. Okay, validation. So that is wrong because part of the, oh, you can't see the poll. Okay. Oh dear, sorry about that, Clement. I will try and run through it again, just high level. I hope you heard the explanations that I provided, but I will talk through the 6 processes involved in value creation. So validation is wrong. You are not supposed to pick validation because it is one of the processes. We said validate the idea. Remember, right after developing the idea or seeking the opportunity, developing the idea, you validate the idea. So validation is a part of the process. Supply chain, the person who picks supply chain, you're absolutely correct. That is correct. Supply chain is not a part of the process. Product or service creation is correct. So nobody picked that. Good to know. Distribution, the 2 people who picked distribution, you are correct. Distribution is not a part of the process. So can I have somebody on mute and tell us what the 6, for the benefit of those who maybe are just joining or didn't hear us, what are the 6 things? Can I have somebody on mute? Validating the idea. Yes. I didn't even say evaluating, it's actually validating. That's what I said. But you're correct, evaluating the idea is the same thing.
Well done, ma. Can you hear me?
Yes. Please go ahead,
Hey,
sir.
ma.
Yes,
Yeah,
go ahead.
we have you identify. Then
Identify
after
what?
identify your idea.
Oh, no. Is it the idea you're identifying?
No,
The
the
opportunity.
opportunity, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, you identify the opportunity.
Okay.
Then you develop the idea.
Okay.
Then you validate the idea. Then after validating, then you create the idea. Then
Okay.
I think that's when you do this distribution and I think that's the 5
So
I
it's
can
not
remember.
yeah. Oh, go ahead. Somebody wants to continue from there.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I thought somebody else was speaking. All right, but thank you so much, Hafiz. Fantastic. You ran the first 4. So the next 2 is delivering the product or service, right? And then, of course, communication and value capture. But thank you so much for putting in that effort. All right. As we wrap up today's session, I want to talk through just how we can identify our target customers and what it looks like when we are creating value for customers. So critical questions to ask in the process of knowing your customers. First of all, why am I in business? Why am I in business? We've spoken extensively about how, we come up with the ideas for business. And it's essentially, the mindset is that it is customer-centric, customer-centered. Who are you selling to, or who are you planning to sell? For those who have not started a business just yet, who are you planning to sell your products or services to? If the answer to this question is people, then you must devote yourself to the study of people. You must seek to understand. You must seek to know. If you want to target children, then you must know about children. If you're targeting, specific age groups, young adults or older people, you must know about the age groups you're targeting. If you're targeting people of a particular skin color, you must know about them, right? If you're targeting a particular gender, then you must be well informed about the gender. You cannot make assumptions. So how many people are there in your operating environment? So again, this is just speaking to your local operating environment. So if you say you're targeting men with your product, how many men exist, right? Especially if it is a new initiative that has not been birthed just yet. So you know that if this is a product for men, then it means that this potentially can reach X number of men, depending on the data that you're working with. Of that total amount, how many can you target your product at? And of your target market, how many broad types of customers are there? Do you need to create variations of your products or services to meet the peculiar needs of these diverse customers? So let me tell you a story, right, quickly, in the FMCG space. So back in the days when they used to produce all of this milk and chocolate drinks that we call Milo, Bonvita, and the likes, they used to come in tins. But as inflation started to become what it is, as the cost of business began to increase significantly, they saw that these companies, these manufacturing entities saw that as the social divide began to widen and widen even more, that is, people were becoming poorer and poorer. More people were moving from the middle income band to the poor band, and very few people were now, the minority now became the rich. People were no longer purchasing those canned produce anymore, or products. And so that's where they came up with the retail strategy. I'm trying to remember which company even did it first. I think it was people who created Cowbell. If you know Cowbell milk, yeah. I think that was the very first retail, the sachet, right? The sachet products that was introduced. And then other FMCG manufacturing entities began to then copy. But my point is, they moved from creating those big packs to including another product line that could meet the people now at the bottom of the rung, because that is now where majority sat. So it wasn't that product existed from the onset. It came about based on need, based on demand, because people were no longer buying, people no longer afford to buy canned products anymore, the big cans or the big sachets. And so they had to start to do the small sachets. In fact, there was a name it was given then when it came out. Some name that tied to the government of the day then. They began to do those small sachets. So that's to tell you that sometimes in business, you must always look at your customer types, and you must, be able to create products that can meet the needs of your different customer bases, especially if you are serving a multi-customer market. So do you need to create variations of your products or service to meet the peculiar needs of these diverse customers? Now, I want you to look at what is on screen, because at the point of business owners trying to meet the needs of customers, sometimes you get it wrong. So for tech companies, for example, they have business analysts or business process individuals who sit with customers to understand their needs and help them frame the needs, right? In a way and manner that at the end of the day, it delivers on the need of the customer and not necessarily the way because sometimes customers can't articulate. Especially now, this example is more relevant to those who operate in the tech space. Yeah. So look at what's on screen. You can see the tree with the rope suspended with the steps, the ladder of sorts. That's what the customer explained that he wanted. What the design team interpreted is what is showing in the second box, there in the middle box. And of course, you can see that it does not in any shape and form look like what the customer described. Then look at what the customer really needed. So you can see the gap. So how do we bridge this gap as business owners? Making sure that what our customers need is really what we are providing to them at the end of the day. Remember some of the things we've said in the process of ideation, conducting surveys, looking at their pain points, looking at what the trends are saying, right? Conducting interviews in some cases. Some businesses, people have had to, sit with people, get a sample size. Pharmaceutical companies do that often. They get a sample size of people that they will test out their product. So in your own space, how are you looking to understanding the needs of your customers and meeting those needs? Okay. If you plan to sell to people, you must become a student of people. We said that. You need to understand, for those who are currently entrepreneurs, why do my customers keep coming back? And the easiest way to find out this is to ask them, why am I enjoying repeat business? I remember a business owner once that I read I read a story about him who didn't know why businesses customers were always coming to his store. Apparently, because he eventually discovered by asking, and the way when he moved locations. So he thought, again, assumption of his cafe, so the snacks, the coffee, the tea that he was putting out was the reason why. He thought that it was great customer service experience. That is, people come in, his staff are very pleasant and the likes. Only to discover when he eventually had to leave where he was and establish the business in another location, that the reason why people were coming to him, actually, why he was making a lot of money in that former place, was because of the location. So the business was situated at a junction that was directly facing a bus stop. So what that meant was when people were waiting for buses, because this is a business that operated in England where everything is timed, right? Trains are timed, buses are timed, etc. So people will come in, to grab a snack, grab a drink, sit and wait. And so he had a lot of foot traffic by reason of being close to the bus stop. But he thought that it was the quality of what he was putting out. That was the reason why. So it was not primarily that, but it was more convenience on the side of commuters, that as they alight from their buses, they can quickly step in there, grab a cup of hot coffee, right? So when he moved, his expectation was that his clients or his customers were going to move with him. But unfortunately not. That wasn't what happened. And so he realized, but he did not know this ahead. So when you're enjoying repeat business, it is important to ask, why are people coming back? Are they coming back out of convenience? Are they coming back because you are leveraging a pricing strategy? That is, your price is better than competition. Because when you know, that way you are able to sustain it, you keep at it. Are they coming back because of the quality of your work? So let me use the fashion industry. There are so many people that can sew, but not so many people that can style or can, do patterns, or the quality of the sewing, is seamless, right? That it almost looks like an imported ready-made outfit. Some people are not as diligent and they don't pay attention to detail. So you might be very skilled, but somebody else who's charging maybe twice what you are charging is charging because of ability to pay attention to detail, to ensure that the final output is really fine, it's really clean, it's really neat. Some people will pay more for that because that way they don't have to, as they're going, they don't have to be pulling thread from their cloth or, trying to adjust something that is not sitting well. So deciding for the customer can kill a business. Discovering your customers, you need to have a firm grasp of the nature of your target market. We've explained that. Large companies invest in research by conducting customer surveys to understand the needs of their preferred customers. Entrepreneurs must find creative ways of soliciting information from the customers they serve. So if you're a young person and you belong to certain groups, it means you have a pool of people that you can leverage information from. Understand what is getting at them, right? And find ways of solving it. Yeah. Bounce your ideas off your people groups that you exist. If you are in a church, you're in a mosque, just find ways to make sure that you are soliciting information. Do not assume that you know why your customers came back. I said that earlier. It may or may not be your fantastic products, your excellent service, or the ambience of your sales outlet. In the case of this business man that I referenced as an example in England, it was a function of his location. So the only way to ask us to find out again is to ask. All right, I would like to take questions at this time. I hope this has been beneficial. So please do share your questions. Please share your questions, comments. And if you want to let us know what parts of today's session resonates with you. I'm waiting to read your comments, everyone. Okay, let me call Akpan. Akpan, do you have any question? If not, are you able to let us know which part of today's session resonates and what you'll be doing about the information you now have? And if you're here, you're an existing entrepreneur, if you're already familiar with all of these concepts, please do share with us how you're leveraging it in your business for the benefit of those who are looking to starting business. That will be very helpful.
So there's a question in the chat box.
Okay. My question is based on the value creation question. Not everyone has proper marketing ideas. How can one tweak that testing phase? Do you need to hire a professional to execute that stage? Absolutely not, depending on the type of business. So if you want to share a bit more information, please do, so that I can guide you specifically. But somebody wants to create a menu, maybe a health-based menu, for example, right? And you want people to taste. So with food, you can get family and friends to come in, taste, give you feedback. If the food is targeted at certain types of people. So let me give you an example of a board that I sit on. It's into the food business, right? But in an interesting way. So what they do is they package raw food, specifically for meals that you can make. So if you want to make jollof rice, for example, the products that you need, everything you need in the quantity that you need it to make 2 plates of jollof rice or 1 plate of jollof rice is what they package and they sell. So it's supposed to be convenient. Who want to go and buy a bag of rice because they want to enjoy economies of scale? No, it is targeted at I just got back type people. I'm very busy. I like homemade meals, right? But I do not want to be saddled with the stress of going to the market or to the supermarket to buy ingredients. All I do is I place an order. I want to eat jollof rice with peppered chicken. I place an order for that, and I have the ingredients, all the ingredients I need delivered at my doorstep, including the seasoning. Then the peppers have been ground. The things that need to be diced have been diced. The things that need to be sliced have been sliced. Do you understand? So it is me just, and then it comes with a preparation manual. So do you see why I say it is not targeted at everybody? It comes with a preparation manual that tells me how long the cooking duration is supposed to be, when to put what in. So even if I don't know how to cook and I follow the manual step by step, I will have a tasty meal of jollof rice with peppered chicken. So I'm saying that when this person was then going to start the business at the prototype stage, what they did was they pulled in a group of people, mostly the person's friends, right? Pulled in a group of people, used a very large space that had cookers and everything, got people in that category that she was trying to target, got them into a room and gave them bags of those things so that they could try their hands on it and then give feedback. It also helped her go out and refine the product based on how the people were able to engage it, and also feedback on even how the meals turned out eventually. So it's not every time that you have to go and hire people to help you do that marketing. Sometimes your marketing is as simple as, it's not even marketing now. What you're doing in terms of validating the idea is to get feedback. It's not marketing yet. We have not even gotten to the stage of marketing yet. We're still talking about testing to confirm that this idea, there is value in it, and there are people who will be interested in it. Okay, so that you are still in the value creation phase. You have not even gotten to the marketing phase just yet. I hope that helps, Clement. Please let me know if it does. If not, I'm happy to revisit it again. Ifoma says, in a situation where customers are not really able to articulate what they want after being asked, how can the business the business know what their customers need? That's a good question. So if you remember that there are other ways you can also check what people need. One is, what complaints do they feature often? What are the pain points that they talk about often? That's one. Number two is, so let me give you an example of a question that might not really resonate with most people, but just a select few. If you're trying to decide what, okay, you want to go into maybe the card business now, so maybe rendering a service to a financial institution to be producing cards, or you want to establish a financial institution and you only want to focus on payment gateways, or you want to focus on cards, let's put that, cards like your ATM cards is what I'm talking about, your debit cards or credit cards, and then you're asking majority on the streets, and you're asking them which would be your preference, a debit card or a credit card, right? A number of people may not be, especially in Nigeria, where we're not a very credit card driven culture. We don't have a very strong credit card driven culture. They may not be able to resonate. That kind of question is neither here nor there. Do you get? But if you're asking someone who lives in a temperate region like Lagos, Nigeria, where the weather is mostly hot than cold, and you're trying to solve, you're coming up with an innovation, a bright idea that allows them not to use AC, but still enjoy the output of an AC. I don't even know what kind of product that is, but just flow with me. You don't have to spend so much money to buy an AC, but I'm giving you a local equivalent that cools you without consuming as much power as an AC will. So I'm not increasing your power bill. And at the same time, you are getting the benefits that you will get if you had an AC, an air conditioner. Do you understand what I'm saying? If you ask somebody that kind of question, it's because it is a need, and you know it is a need because you understand the general complaints of people about living in Lagos, living in Nigeria, especially in the southwestern parts of Nigeria, the parts that are very temperate, essentially, because places like Jos, that may not be the complaints there. You get. So you have to do a mix of different options when you see that it looks like customers are not clearly articulating what they need. Sometimes you might even get to your testing phase, right? You think you've understood what they need, then you go ahead and you test by offering them a sample, a prototype, and they use and say, oh no, this is not exactly what I need. This is what I think it should be. But you don't work with one person. It's always a sample size so that you can then take an average position from everybody. I don't know if that helps. If Oma, please let me know. Okay. Nkoyo says, knowing why customers come back to patronize my business resonates with me. This will help me. Thank you so much for that feedback. Thank you, Clement. I've seen your comment. Nkoyo says, should I give out sample products of my business to find out what the people think about the product before I go into full production? Absolutely. Yes, please. In fact, this one is a big deal. Yeah. It's useful. Find people who will give objective feedback, right? Hopefully, I know that sometimes the product design stage sometimes is very expensive for people, right? And so they ask, how many samples should I give up before I can determine if this is something that will resonate, which is why you need to find key people that you know their feedback matters on this. Give it to them, let them test, let them give you feedback. If it's skincare products, if it is, depending on what it is, give it to them, let them give you feedback. It's important so that you know the areas you can rework. And understand this, everyone. Value creation is an ongoing, in fact, value is an ongoing process. It's a continuous cycle. So you keep iterating, you keep getting better and better at it. This is not to say that until it is 100% perfect is before you launch. Absolutely not. But to say, at least get feedback so that you know what you're working with. You can make an informed decision about your launch. These limitations that have been spotlighted, are they things that I can live with? Are they things that I know that will not impact my business significantly? If the answer is yes, then by all means proceed to start to, make your product available to the public. But if the answer is it will affect my business, sorry, if the answer is no, but if the answer is now yes, it will affect my business, it will affect my ability to be able to generate revenue or deliver on the value that I have, that has propelled me in the first place, then you want to step back and go and rework it. Okay, so Clement says, I have another question. I love it. Please keep the questions coming. Based on product rebranding, for some products that have already gone through rebranding phase and still can survive the harshness of the market and also economy of the country, are there other strategies the business owner can implement for such products? This one is a steep question and a very important one too, because sometimes we have seen businesses rebrand in the name of looking different than what it used to look like, so that customers can become more receptive to them. And unfortunately, it has not delivered. What I will say in response to this, before I go into other strategies, is I think what the rebranding has done is to show you that branding was not the problem in the first place. And so it is important for the business owner to go and take a second look at it and see, why aren't people engaging? Perhaps this used to be a need and is no longer a need. Or if it is still a need, what is competition doing that I'm not doing? So beyond just rebranding, giving it a different look and feel. In fact, in my next class, I will show you a slide. There's a quote that I have on that speaks to us business owners not rebranding and making the customers look foolish. Because sometimes what you've changed is the outer package, but the product is still the same. Nothing has changed really. So you want to do a root cause analysis first to understand, why is this rebranding not catching on? Why is it not providing any difference in terms of the bottom line, the final outcomes? If you've established that it's not a product deficiency, you've established that it is not a pricing challenge. It's not that now I've rebranded, I've become more expensive than competition, right? Have you gone to buy what competition has, for example, to compare with what you have, and just give people objectively to analyze for you, right? And give you feedback. So you want to check all those other things. Now, if you've checked those boxes and it is that you still have a great product, the product has the potential to be well engaged, but it's not currently being engaged despite rebranding efforts. Pricing is right. In fact, you are even cheaper than competition. Then you want to check things like your distribution channels. And when we get into our business model canvas, we'll see that. How am I currently distributing this product? How are people able to access it? Is it easily accessible? What marketing efforts have I deployed? Are we together? So those are some of the questions and strategies you want to consider. Marketing efforts, accessibility. Is it easily accessible to the public? Where are the products found presently? Am I engaging the right target market to start with? So for example, if you like the packaged ube that I described, if you are selling that packaged ube in a place like Ajegunle, you will not sell. Do you understand? Because they can afford to use that 3,000 naira they used to buy the one pack to buy maybe, a handful of almost 30 or 50 pieces. But here you are with just a few seeds inside and it's packaged at 3,000. So you might have a great product, but be in the wrong location or I'll be targeting the wrong customer base. So for this one, Clement, there are a ton of questions to ask before you even get into how else to strategize. Once you identify where the bottleneck is, it's easier to then strategize. So I hope some of the things that I have shared can help in that decision-making process. Okay. Any other questions? In the absence of any, I will use the floor now to Godwin. But feel free to drop your questions on the chat room, in the WhatsApp room. I'll be available for some time to answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Okay.
Busola.
Sorry, Godwin, there's one more question. Yeah, there's one more question. Can I take that quickly?
Sure, go ahead, please.
Okay. He says, I'm into leather goods and have been engaging with as much educative material and training as possible. But for the local experience, to some extent, it's almost the same system, and I'm hoping to have an international process. How do you think I go about it? I'm not very sure I understand this question. You're speaking about local experience versus international experience. So you have all the information you will require about doing business locally with your leather goods, right? If I understand you correct, Hamad. Please feel free to unmute. And then you are saying you want to start to export. Am I interpreting your question correctly? And you're asking how to go about the exportation side of this. You're welcome, Nkoyo. Hamad, am I interpreting your question correctly, please? Okay, my system is hanging. Godwin, am I still audible?
Yes, very audible. I've also given Hamidu the floor to speak, so he just has to unmute.
Okay. All right, Amido, if you can hear. Yeah.
Yeah. My
Okay.
question was the working process. So I've been going into selling off some educative material, but the process, I mean, I want to kind of differently.
Can you hear him clearly? Because I can't hear him.
No, I can't. And I see Nkoyo here. This is fantastic because this is also one of the value in being a part of the Adara Foundation training program, because Nkoyo is also saying that she's into shoemaking and she's looking for she's happy to connect with Hamido. So I think both of you can exchange contacts. Hopefully both of you are on the WhatsApp group so that you can exchange contacts. And Hamido, we can't hear you, unfortunately, but please, you can buzz me on the WhatsApp group with your question. And Nkoyo here perhaps has some information that she can share with you for the international process you're describing. Godwin, over to you, please. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time.
Okay, thank you so much, Busola. That was very, very engaging. Just as you mentioned, yes, Hamid, if you are not in the WhatsApp community, please let us know in the chat box. We have community managers online that can give you a link to the WhatsApp platform, so that you can leverage some opportunities, network with other entrepreneurs, and just sort of connect with each other. Also, please do follow Adara Foundation on all social media network, Instagram, X, Facebook, and TikTok. One of the reasons why we asked you to follow us on social media is just because we have a lot of exciting programs that are focused on, helping young entrepreneurs, helping youth and women, So when you follow us, you are able to get first-hand information about this product. And also do follow subscribe to our YouTube platform so that you can also watch recap of trainings that you have probably missed right from the first course down to entrepreneurship. If you do have any other questions, please drop it in the WhatsApp community. And thank you so much for engaging. We are taking notes of those that have been engaging, asking very engaging questions, commenting in the chat box. And we always have a culture of rewarding everyone that has been really engaging so far. Till next week, Saturday. If you do have any other questions, you put it in the WhatsApp platform, and our facilitator is there to, help you answer those questions. Thank you once again. Have a good evening.